Today, we're going to talk about the creation, display, and appreciation of kusamono. The art form of kusamono is really steered by the seasons and the coming seasons. So when you display a kusamono in the tokonoma or with a bonsai, you're highlighting a theme for a time of year or a time of year that's about to occur. Now, we'll talk about a few of the kusamono that I created this year. After 6 months of work on this particular kusamono, the pseudotym has flushed new growth and it's nice and uniform in size. All of the asters are blooming again and the sedums are showing off their fall color. So this would be the perfect time to display this kusamono. Here is the final product after 3 rounds of defoliating this pyrosia, removing the largest leaves. On the fern, the frond size has dramatically decreased and it's much more compact, as well as the sedum sabotii here, which is actually flowering now. So the overall composition is much more compact and uniform now. Now that about 6 months have passed, these 3 kusamono have filled in nicely and are ready for display. When I created this kusamono, all of the ferns were very small, and now that they have really filled in this pot well, the height of the kusamono in relation to the thickness and depth of the pot is a little bit more balanced. It'll look better next year though. When I made this one, everything was very small, and these black mondo have actually multiplied quite well in the span of a year. All of the sedums and other plants have cascaded down the sides of the pot, and it breaks up the line of this very strong line here. I'm especially happy with this kusamono and the way it filled in over the course of the year. The lamium is in flower. All of the artemisia was cut back to the base of the stems twice this year, and the scutellaria has finished its flowering cycle. So everything is really well balanced. There's a number of different textures and colors in this design. This is a grouping of egret orchids. The scientific on this is Habenaria radiata. This is one of my favorite species for kusamono, as they literally look like birds. Normally with Japanese art, it's more suggestive and minimalist, but these actually look real. They're very difficult to get to flower. They love a bog-like environment, and getting them to flower all at once like this and not get fungal infections is hard in bonsai culture. When you have a very simple design in regards to the plants you use for a kusamono, the pot can be very complicated and ornate. You should never have 5 or 10 species of plants and a very ornate pot together. It's too much. It needs to be a subdued design. So in this case, the pot is excellent. Here's a kusamono I made earlier this year. It's just moss, but it's a very avant-garde pot made by Michelle and Charles Smith at MC Squared Pottery. Here we have a variegated star rush. It's planted in a suibon because it is a swamp plant. So in this particular case, I'm highlighting a water theme. This is another excellent kusamono. It's a very old composition of Equisetum hymale, or horsetail rush, a fern, and some spring ephemerals. At the base, the moss is mounded up sequentially over time, which gives it a great feeling of age. This is very good for a summer display as it gives a cooling feeling. Some people don't know this, but the earth used to be covered with this plant in a giant form, and that's where our fossil fuels come from. This kusamono was made by a Fujikawa International Bonsai School student named Mrs. Carell. This is another good example of why the Fujikawa International School is such a good resource for people to use. You don't just learn about bonsai here, you learn about display, kusamono, history, as well as any other influences that may have shaped what bonsai art is today.
So my name is Juan Cruz, and I studied at Bonsai for 2 years. I was lucky enough to study there and spend a good deal of time training bonsai there. What I really liked about Bonsai is that we would get trees from many different artists from around Japan that would want to put their bonsai there for consignment and for sale. So this really allowed me to study their particular styles of each individual artist and from the different regions of Japan as well. So one of the things that really surprised me about the styling bonsai here in Japan was that it wasn't so much about what type of particular style or what type of particular technique you were to use. It wasn't so much about that. It was more about keeping the health and make it more natural. I came to understand that there's no such thing as rules in bonsai. No particular rules. It's just suggestions. So what I used to think as rules, like you have to have only 2 branches spreading out, and no forked branches coming out of a tree, or no internal inside the curved branches. That wasn't so much the key to styling a bonsai here. It was more, if the tree needed that branch, then it was kept. If it wasn't needed, then we would try to see how else we would use it before we cut it off. Whereas in the US, we tend to cut and try to style the tree later. Here is more trying to use as much as you can from the tree and keep it more of a natural style than we do in the US. So my hope is to eventually try to bring up the quality of bonsai in the US, and that's my whole goal, was to come to Japan, study a little bit more about how to style a bonsai, what the particular styles and techniques that we have here in Japan, and bring some of the learnings back to the US and hopefully bring up the quality of bonsai even more than what it is now in the future. I think the worst thing probably is that we're still very young in our knowledge, and so we need to just get more experience with it. There are a few people that have taken it to the next level, and I think we need to learn from those people. Although everybody has their own particular style that they've learned when they came to Japan and from their different masters, and so we just need to understand that everybody has slightly different style than another teacher. So even if one teacher will tell you to do one thing a particular way, another teacher may come and say something different. It doesn't mean that the previous or the current teacher is wrong. It just means that that is what they think maybe that tree needs at that time. And so we just need to be a little bit more understanding about styles and individuality of teachers and bonsai. One of the things that I think is good about American bonsai is that we tend to be very inclusive in that it doesn't matter where do you come from, how much experience you have or don't have. You're able to easily join a club and they will take you in almost as a family member. So I think that's the wonderful thing about American bonsai.